Hey, how's it going? Great to see you. If you haven't been here before, my name's Tim, and on this channel we look at a whole pile of geeky creator, tech, YouTuber, camera and film kind of stuff. So yes, you're in the right place. Today we're going to be having a look at the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera Pro 6K. That's this thing right here in this great big huge chunky box, which I'm going to open up right now so we can see what's in it. So here we go. Here's the box. Fairly simple box, as you can see. It's the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. It can record in Blackmagic RAW or ProRes codecs, and the media it can use is either SD cards, SSD drives, or CFast 2 cards. It comes with a license of DaVinci Resolve Studio in the box. It's a fully fledged one, and on the front of the box here it tells you that the 6K resolution is 6144 by 3456 pixels. It's a Super 35 sensor, which is E-mount, so it'll take any of your existing Canon lenses. It's 13 stops of dynamic range and high dynamic range. What that means is it's not going to blow out your whites and crush your black. It's dual ISO, which means that it is dual native 400 ISO and 3200 ISO, which is pretty cool. It shoots up to 25,600 ISO as well, expanded, and it's got some built-in mechanical ND filters, which I've had a bit of a play with, and they're really cool. The side of the box over here tells you about some of those basic features we were just talking about. Something that's really cool is this EVF as well, the electronic viewfinder. I don't have that one, or at least not yet. The back of the case shows you basically a summary of all of the different buttons and features on the body itself, but we'll have a look at that in a second when we get it finally out of the box, which is what I'm going to do right now. So we get the lid open. Here we are. Inside the box here you can see there's a camera strap. This just goes onto the strap mounts on the camera, which I'll show you later on when we get that out of here. It's got the international power supply, different thingy blips that you can put onto the power brick. We're going to be using the New Zealand one, of course, and some paperwork. Now the paperwork in here is fairly sparse. There's this little welcome document, which is just a three-fold like that, and instead of putting manuals and things in here, there's just a QR code that links you to the manual, so you can go and get that and read it at your leisure on the train to work or wherever it is you happen to be, and have a few moments to really geek out on some technical camera stuff. And a really nice inspirational photo here of the type of set that we would all like to be working in right at the moment. Next thing in the box here is a DaVinci Resolve Studio little fold out thing, and in here has got a little card in it that has your Resolve license key on there. I'm not going to show you mine, of course, because I want to use it myself. And of course the most important thing in the entire box is this here. Now I don't need to tell you how important it is to have a sticker in your packaging when you're sort of distributing a high-end product like this. Stickers really tell people that you're pro, so don't forget, guys, always put a sticker in your products. The other things in here are the battery and of course the power brick. The power brick is proprietary to the Blackmagic gear, but you can get a D-tap to that same socket as well. It's a fairly robust socket so that it's not going to get damaged easily by plugging it and unplugging it quite a bit. Right, now let's just carefully pull that out of there, and we want to get down to the main beast we've got in here, which is the camera itself. And I'll lift that out of the box, and here we go. Now this is a lot bigger than something that's going to fit in your pocket, as you can quite clearly see. It's got the lens cap on here, and of course the Canon mount, E-mount in here. I'll just leave that on so we don't get dust and stuff on here. In the front here we've got two microphones in behind these grills, and we've got cooling slots and all that sort of thing. The other thing on the front is the swivel wheel here. Now this wheel at the front is incredibly useful. In fact, it's used for most of the controls on the camera. On the top of the camera here we have got the record button and the shutter button, so if you want to you can just take stills with this as well, just by pushing that, and it takes a still photo in DNG RAW. The power switch at the top here for turning it on and off, of course, and these three little fun buttons along here, which I think have been really well designed and are really smart. What you can do with these is you just push one of those, which is the ISO, shutter and white balance, and you can adjust that with the swivel wheel and then click by pushing the button in. If you don't have one of these currently selected and activated, then the swivel wheel at the front changes the iris on the lens. Sitting on the back of the camera here, we have got the ND filter plus or minus buttons. You just push plus and it goes from clear to 2, 4 or 6 stops. Down the side here we've got an auto exposure button, which will automatically set the exposure. There are some settings that you can use that change how the exposure is calculated and how it's set. The autofocus button is here. If you've got a lens that has got autofocus, you can use it. HFR, which is the high frame rate button, so you can switch it from shooting say 30 frames a second to shooting 60 frames a second but recording at 30, so it comes back at half speed, for example. The magnifying glass button here is for magnifying the image so that you can like check focus and that sort of thing. This one here is a menu button and of course a playback button at the bottom. Then we've got the screen on the back here. The screen's pretty cool. If there's a couple of tabs up on each corner, you can just pull that forward and back and out, and it will go to 90 degrees on the camera like that, so you can shoot looking down on it, or it will tilt all the way up to 45 degrees as you can see there, so that you can shoot from a high angle and get a good image and still be able to see it. So it gives you a lot of options for being able to shoot without an external monitor. On the side here we've got a microphone and headphone jack at the top. I'll just quickly open that up so you can see inside there. It's just two standard 3.5mm jacks. Underneath that we've got a full-size HDMI which outputs a monitor signal at 1080p 60 frames. And underneath that we've got one more cover which has got a USB for doing USB stuff, so it's doing your updates or running a hard drive onto for recording onto external media. There's two mini XLR sockets here for high quality microphones, and of course the 12 volt power adapter at the back here that we were talking about before. That's the one where your brick plugs into. And finally on the other side of the camera is the media slot, which is really nicely concealed. You need to put a bit of pressure on this one and just slide that backwards, and there you have the slots for an SD card or a CFast 2 card. Nice and easy. Oh, and underneath of course we've got the slot for the battery. I've already got one charged up in here so that I could have a bit of a play with it, and of course the 1/4 inch threads for mounting onto a tripod or sled or a gimbal or something like that. There's also another mounting point on the top here where you can put a monitor bracket or a microphone or something like that if you want to. And this little screw hole here that undoes so that you can put the electronic viewfinder in there if you want to. And so there you go, there's a really quick overview of the camera. Now the menuing system is something that I really love in here as well. I'm just going to give you a really quick look at that. I'm not going to go in depth into any of the menu settings or anything, but I'll just show you why I like the menuing in here. It's basically based off the same Blackmagic OS that we had in the previous cinema cameras. So if we have a look in here, I can just hit the menu button over on the side and it brings up the menus. The first one is the record menus. Here you can choose your codec and your quality, so Blackmagic RAW, you can go constant or bitrate or constant quality and different ratios in there. We've got ProRes and you can choose HQ422 LT or proxy. Then we've got the different resolutions you can shoot at, so I could shoot 4K DCI or Ultra HD in here, or HD using ProRes H2. I could go to Blackmagic RAW and I could shoot 6K at an 8:1 compression ratio, constant bitrate for that and that sort of thing. The next screen shows you a few different things, so you can choose your dynamic range, whether it's straight video or an extended video dynamic range or film dynamic range. If you want to color correct everything, film's the way to go. If you just want to use it straight out of the camera, video's the way to go. You're going to lose a bit of flexibility there of course, but you've got the option. You can then choose your frame rate and what media you're recording to. The monitor sections let you lets you use a variety of different settings for the LCD monitor. That's this one on the back, an HDMI monitor coming out of the HDMI port, a viewfinder if you've put that on top, and then there are some settings that override everything, which is where you've got your color peaking, false color, zebra levels and all that sort of thing. In the audio settings here, we've got the left and right camera microphone selected, but you can set that up to use the XLR camera's microphone, and you can set the levels and the gain on it. In the setup menu here, we've got the stuff you might expect, which is the date, time. We've got the flicker free thing, so I'm in a 50 Hz country where we're using 50 Hz line frequency, so I want to choose that one. If you're in the States, you'd be using 60 Hz. You can choose whether the ND filters are presented as stops, a number, or a fraction. I'm going to use stops, of course, because that's what I'm familiar with from doing photography. There's function buttons that you can set up. There's stuff about tally and the LED brightness and all these sorts of things, and a couple of other setup options in here as well, including formatting discs and stuff. Then we've got presets, which I haven't got anything in here. You can save preset settings, so if you're doing a couple of projects, you might have one called Project 1 and you got settings for that. You might have Project 2 Scene A and Project 2 Scene B. You can have those set up so if you go away, shoot something else and then come back to that one, then you can have all your settings all ready to go. And finally, LUTs. You can load LUTs into here. It's got a few of them that are set up already, but you can load your own LUTs into here to get the look you want, so you can design a look in any sort of application that helps you design LUTs and export them out and plonk them into here using the monitor setup thing that we were looking at before. So there you go. As you can see, the menus are actually quite intuitive as well. They're really easy to get around. Personally, I think that they've learned a hell of a lot since the cinema camera days, even though I absolutely love the cinema camera menus as well. Some people do, some people don't. But it's just really easy to find your way around these things, and the buttons and everything that they've put onto the camera surface, the physical buttons, I think they've been really well thought out. Also on the touchscreen there are some other settings and things that you can adjust with a bit of fine control when you're shooting. For example, you can hit the little window at the top there and you can choose whether to display grid lines or not, horizon, crosshair, all of these sorts of bits and pieces from this at the back, the thirds lines and all that sort of stuff. You can set up safety lines, safety regions and an aspect ratio in here as well. You can also set it to run false color and those sorts of things. I've got that turned off at the moment. There's my safety margins and there's the aspect ratio, so I've got that set to 2 to 1 at the moment, but if I wanted to I could blow that out, make it 185 to 1, or I could go the other way and set it for a really wide screen 2.4 to 1 ratio if I really wanted to be cinematic, for lack of a better word. You can also click here to set your focus assist level, and off to the side here to set your zebras for when you're risking blowing up footage or something like that. The next one is the frame rate up here, and if you just hit that, then you can change the actual frame rate that you're shooting at. So I just want to shoot at 30 frames a second, so I'll select that there. If I wanted to shoot some slow-mo, I could also just turn that on and tell it that I want to shoot that at 50 frames a second, slowed down to 30 frames a second, and it will do that. If I use this HFR button on the back here, it'll switch, toggle between those. The next thing I've got up here, of course, is the shutter speed, which you can change easily. You can also just use the wheel on the front to do that if you don't have one of those other buttons selected, as I was saying earlier. The iris control here isn't showing because I don't have a lens plugged in at the moment. The ISO is currently set to 1000. As I said before, the native ISO points are either 400 or 3200. The white balance is easily set here as well. Once again, if you hit WB on the control here, then that will let you change the white balance, and you can click at the front of it and it will go away again. There's also a tint option here, so you can tint it after it's white balanced. Down the bottom here we've got the time management. You can click on that one there. It shows you that you got 10 minutes remaining on a 128 gig card, which has got that sort of real number and all the information. It's an OSX extended format. I could reformat the card here or just exit this at the moment. And the audio bars, so you can change the sensitivity and the overall output volume of the audio if you decide you want one microphone louder than the other. And just over here, of course, is the histogram that you'll use while you're shooting, so that you are relying on numbers and accurate data and not just what your eyes can see. You are going to do that, aren't you? Finally, up in the top right hand corner here, we've got the battery indicator, and lets you know what the current voltage is of the battery, this one, which is running low. Oh, and before I forget, there's the ND indicator over on the top left hand corner below the other bits we were playing with before, and if you hit the plus and minus here on the back, you can see that the ND number jumps up or down. So that's at 6 stops, then 4 stops, 2 stops, and finally the ND is clear, so it's not reducing the light coming in at all. And there you go, that's basically it in a nutshell. That's the Blackmagic 6K Pro Cinema camera, just unboxed, and I'm going to go have a play with it and get you guys some footage. If there is some particular footage you would like to see, put it down into the comments below so I know what to go and shoot, so then you can come back and have a look at it. And of course, if you do want to come back and have a look at the footage that I go and shoot with us over the next couple of days, you'll need to hit the subscribe button here so that you don't miss out on it. And in the meantime, you can watch this video and this video as well, because YouTube picked them just for you, because they really know what you like. And I'll see you in another video soon. Have a good evening.